when you're finding exact values for angles that aren't on the unit circle, they're on your unit circle chart. So like tangent of 30, you just have to remember the formulas for sine, and these would be a good thing to put on your note card. So when we're looking for sine of an angle, that's the y value. When you're looking for cosine of an angle, that's your x value. Tangent is y over x. And then you have all your reciprocals as well. So you have cosecant, which is 1 over y, secant, which is 1 over x, and cotangent, which is x over y. So for us, like for this one, tangent of 30 is the y over the x. So if we look at tangent 30 on our unit circle, tangent of, so you find 30 degrees, which is right here. This is our x and our y value right here. So it's y over x. So the y value divided by the x value. So this is going to be 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2. So, and then we start reducing or simplifying, not reducing, but simplifying. So I'm going to times top and bottom of the large fraction by 2. So here on top, those can cancel and those will cancel. So I'm left with 1 over square root of 3. It's not simplified if we leave our square root in the denominator, so we multiply by that square root. So we get square root of 3 on top. And remember, the roots cancel on the bottom, but the number still stays. So then this is my final answer for tangent. And I mean, you can check that by typing that in your calculator. You can type in tangent of 30, but it will just give you a decimal. But then afterwards you can type, okay, square root of 3 divided by 3. Type that in your calculator and it should give you the same decimal. So you can absolutely use your calculator to check these things. And some of them come out pretty nicely, so that would be good. Okay, secant. Let's do one more. So secant of this one could be tricky though because it's a negative angle. So negative 3 pi over 4. So if you notice looking here, we have all of our positive angles. So if I'm looking at positive wise, positive 3 pi over 4 is over here starting at 0. So if I went like this, but I want a negative, so I kind of want to go backwards. So just a reflected version. So that would end right here. So these are the x and y values that I'm going to be using. So, okay, but which value did I need? So secant, which is 1 over x. So all I need actually is the x value. So let's look at the x value is negative square root of 2 over 2. So then we're going to have 1 divided by negative square root of 2 over 2. Same thing as before, I'm going to times top and bottom by 2 so I can cancel that denominator. So I have 2 over negative root 2. And I'm going to bring that down here so I have a little bit more room. So 2 over negative root 2. And I want to get rid of that square root on the bottom, so I'm going to times by the square root of 2. I'm actually going to do times negative square root of 2. You could do either one. So on the top, I just get those two numbers next to each other because I can't really multiply. This turns into a positive on the bottom. The roots cancel, so I'm left with 2. And now I have these two numbers no longer in square roots that I can simplify. So I'm left with negative square root of 2. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be going backwards. So remember when you're looking at inverse functions, inverse trig functions, this time we give all answers in the interval from 0 to 360. So inverse cosecant, I'm looking for, okay, which number on the, or which angle, this time I'm looking for the angle. So going backwards, I'm looking for which angle has a, and cosecant, remember, is the reciprocal of sine. So if I take this number and flip it upside down, so this is like 1 over 1. So let's take 1 over 1, flip it upside down, so top and bottom switch, which is still just 1 over 1. I change that into an inverse sine question. So I'm looking for what angle has a sine value of positive 1. And remember, sine is the y value. Oop, that doesn't equal y, but sine is the y value. Sine of an angle is the y value. So I'm looking for which angles between 0 and 360 have a y value of positive 1. So if you start looking around here, which ones have a y value of positive 1? So looking at y values, this is y 0. This is as high as it gets, it looks, and then it starts going back down to negative. Okay, so it looks like there's only one because I'm looking all the way from 0 to 360 is where they told me to look. So it looks like 90 degrees is the only one. So that would be my answer. 90 degrees. Sometimes you have more than one, but in this case, we just have one. Okay, let's do one a little bit more. And again, you can type, if you know how to switch this into that form. Inverse is something that you can type in your calculator as well. So like this might be a good one. So if we can switch it into a cosine question, because this is the inverse of cosine. So if I take inverse of cosine, all I have to do is flip this upside down to change it into a cosine question. So I'm going to do 3 over 2 square root of 3. And if I just type that in my calculator, inverse cosine of 3 over 2 square root of 3. That gives me 30. So there we go. There's one of my answers already. So a cosine, this is the angle, an angle that has a cosine of 30 degrees. But you just have to make sure that you have all of the angles between 0 and 360 that have that value. So cosine, which cosine has that value? So 30 degrees. So if we look at 30 degrees, we just have to find, okay, is there another angle that has the same cosine? So cosine again is the x value. Oh, sorry, the x value. I was circling the wrong one. So is there any other angle between 0 and 360 degrees that has the same x value as this guy? Erase my marks from before. And it looks like cosine is an x value. So if we think about it x value wise, these two are going to have the same x value. So actually another answer for us is going to be 330. And there we go. There's our two answers. So use your calculator to your advantage, but don't forget how to find your other answers. So let's actually look at a tangent one, because sine and cosine are pretty easy to see, because sine is the y value, cosine is the x value, but tangent is the division of the two. So tangent is of an angle is y over x. So taking a few things and dividing it, the x and the y value. So you have to think about it, or if we use our calculator and just type this in, inverse tangent of -1, we would get an answer of -45. But here's the deal. -45 is not even going to be any of our answers. It's not in this interval that we're given. So let's check out -45 degrees on the unit circle. So -45, if I go backwards, remember you have to go down. So -45 would be here. So this is telling me that this y value divided by this x value equals -1. Which is true, it's the same number, just one is negative, one is positive. So looking at this, so this is, oh, and we can actually use that 315 because that's a coterminal angle. So let's just write that down as one of our answers. So that's actually not one of our answers. So 315 is 1. Is there anywhere else on the unit circle that has a tangent of that's the same? So if you divide the x and the y, it's going to equal -1. And the thing with tangent is we can't do the same thing as we did with x's. So because if I line it up this way, those are both positive, so that's not going to work. If I line it up this way with the y values, those are both negative, so that's going to turn positive when we divide that, so that's not going to work. So it's actually across the circle this way. These two are going to have the same tangent value. So for us, our second answer is going to be 135 degrees. So if it's one of the weird ones like cotangent, cosecant, or secant, you have to know how to flip it, turn it into a different question, and then you have to make sure you remember to find all of the answers between 0 and 360 degrees.